Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another episode of First Impressions. Today it's a film from the 80s that I'm going to be talking about. This is a film I've been meaning to watch for a while. It's just one of those ones that whenever I think about it, yeah, I'll get to watching it. Now, as I record this, it's been almost a week since I watched it. I watched it on the 4th of July. It's now July 9th as I record this, mainly because I hadn't had the perfect moment to sit down and actually talk about it in front of the camera. Though I did compile notes the night before I'm recording this, which was the 8th. The film, of course, is the Brian De Palma classic from 1987, loosely based on a true story, The Untouchables. Now, this film is and isn't a remake of the classic TV show. The reason I say that is it is produced by the same company before their rights to the book that it's based on lapsed, which of course is based on the case to take down Al Capone for tax evasion. But it's loosely an adaptation because it does play loosey-goosey with the facts, and it does not directly adapt any of the stories from the TV show. So it fits a readaptation a lot better. Now, like I said, it was directed by Brian De Palma, and it stars Kevin Costner as Elliot Ness, Sean Connery as Jimmy Malone, Andy Garcia as George Stone, and Robert De Niro is Capone himself. Now, they all do great jobs acting-wise. Costner, if I have to say if there's any weak link of them, it's probably him. Garcia, I'd say he does a little bit better acting-wise. He's just not as memorable as Costner as an S. And Connery and De Niro are probably the two most memorable actors in this film and give the two best performances. I mean, Connery won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his performance, the only time he ever won that award in his whole career. And of course, it has one of his most famous lines of dialogue. You never bring I was about to say the wrong way. It's bringing a knife to a gunfight, but everyone always says that you never bring a knife to a gunfight. It's one of those weird things that you get kind of right, but not fully, but it makes sense in the context of the scene, because he almost gets caught by surprise, and it's like, then he gets caught by surprise. De Niro, excellent as Capone, perfect casting, and of course, one of his most memorable lines, I want him dead, I want his family dead, I want his house burnt to the ground, I want to go somewhere and I'm going to piss on his ashes. That's one, but there's many other scenes. Now, as I've already mentioned a couple times, the plot is based on federal agents. I forget which department it is. I'm guessing it's Prohibition Department. I don't remember if they specify what it is because they just say federal. I know it's not the FBI because from what I've researched, they actually got a little tiffy during the making of the original show about, wait a minute, we were involved in that one. Ness and his people didn't do that one. They're trying to crack down on alcohol distribution in Chicago, which Capone has the monopoly on. They always can get certain evidence, but things happen, and as the film goes along, we see why. Capone is given money across the board. He has the mayor in his pocket, he has some of the cops in his pocket, especially the chief. So you can see why a case against Capone is very hard to make. And Ness, he's not getting much help. I mean, the cops help him to a point, but then he runs against brick walls, like the scene where him and his men do a raid on where they think they're going to get a bunch of illegal liquor. Turns out they're just getting umbrellas and other merchandise like that. And just the look on Ness's face when the photographer takes the picture, when he expected it was going to be a picture of him pulling out whiskey. No, it's just a picture of an umbrella. Now, this all changes the night that Ness meets Malone, and they decide to band together and form their own little group. Malone giving Ness some advice, because Malone is a cop on the beat. He's been there for at least the last 10 years of his career. You could tell he's trying to keep a low profile, just get the last few years of his career done, retire, and then do whatever he wants to. Now, when he meets Ness, everything changes, and since he has that experience, he gives Ness some pointers, like, if he wants to be able to use cops properly, don't go to the ones who are already on the beat. Go to the academy, and that's where Stone comes into it. The only one he really pulls is a character that ends up getting killed later. Anyway, these group of four are the Untouchables in the film. And the reason they're called the Untouchables, at least in the film, is that Ness refuses a straight-up bribe. And that scene, there's tension there. You're like, is he going to take it? He's going to take it? No, he doesn't take it. Which is true. In real life, Capone did attempt to bribe Ness. It didn't work. Now, the one thing the film exaggerates, the one thing, there's a couple things, is that Capone did not actually try to get Ness and the others killed like is shown in the film. Because he knew, if we do that, it's going to really cause more trouble for us. Because if we kill federal agents, the federal government's going to crack down harder on us. Which is also why during the trial he didn't try to kill any of the people involved with the case. He tried to bribe them, But he didn't try to kill him because that'd make the case have more publicity, and that's the last thing someone in Capone's shoes would want. Now, as the film goes along, the Untouchables do crack down on Capone. I mean, there's one great scene where they bust some bootleggers who were coming over the Canadian border with the help of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Now, after this, they get a hold of a ledger that could help them nail Capone. Not for the murders and stuff, but for tax evasion. The charge anyone who has a basic knowledge of history knows is what Capone was eventually convicted of. And as the film goes along, they go from one bookkeeper to another. There's that famous scene in the subway station where Ness is waiting for the bookkeeper, and then he has to help the lady, and as he's helping her, the bookkeeper comes in, and then the scene where there's a shootout with the baby carriage going down the stairs, and the lady going, "My baby, my baby!" Through all that, that's an excellent example of both De Palma's direction and the cinematography of Stephen H. Burham. You could see why he got an Oscar nod in his career. He wasn't nominated for this film, but he was nominated a couple years later for Hoffa. Other films that he had under his belt, cinematography-wise, were one of my favorite 80s films, The Outsiders, Rubblefish, which is kind of a spiritual successor because it's based off a novel by the same lady, and I believe it's also directed by Coppola. I'll have to double-check that. War of the Roses, another Connery film I've been meaning to watch. Carlito's Way, another one on it. And another scene that really shows off Burham's cinematography is the scene in the church, which, by the way, that scene, the way it was done, was Connery's idea, because the script was going to be on the streets. But then Connery's like, De Palma? Sure. No, let me try to do it. And Connery was, De Palma, it's probably not the best idea that we do this on the streets. Why not? Why is that, Sean? Well, with everyone being in Capone's pocket, I think there would be only one place in the entire city. Now I'm making him sound like Nixon. I just realized that. We should do this in the Catholic Church. Alright, that actually sounds good. No one's gonna think to spy on him there. And of course we get it. Now the way that they accomplish that shot where both of them are in focus is they use the split focus, I'm probably gonna butcher this word, diopter. Which means that half of the frame is nearsighted, the other half is farsighted, so they can get it both in focus. Which, if you know anything about lenses and all that, is a you-know-what to do. So the fact that they had to use this to do that is amazing, and it makes the shot all the better. It helps that scene, because that was one of my favorite shots. I mean, I've always noticed how shots are, but after taking the film class, I noticed them a lot more, because we actually had to study cinematography specifically. And all the different lenses, fisheye lens, wide-angle lens, telephoto lens, which I do have to get some for these type of cameras, mainly for photography. But when they're there, you notice the difference when you're looking at like the same angle used from different lenses. Another thing that really makes this film work is the score by Ennio Morricone, who, from what I am reading here, actually got an Oscar nod for his score. Because the film was Oscar nominated, and of course Connery won for his performance, but the other nods, in addition to him and the score, were costume design and production design, which, looking at this film, I applaud it, because both of those categories magically and beautifully recreated the early 30s period in Chicago. You really feel that you're there. Now, as originally scripted, the scene in the train yard was supposed to be on a train, which I think is probably a better move that they scrapped the train part and did it inside the station, because that just looks better from a mise-en-scène perspective. For those of you who don't remember what that word means, it means everything from the camera. Costume sets, actors, lighting, and acting, of course. It just makes the scene flow better. It's kind of hard to imagine how that scene would have been on the train. From what I understand, De Palma kind of rearranged his idea for the train sequence in Carlito's Way, and since I haven't seen that film, I don't have an idea of how it would have looked here. So that's, once I see that film, I'll kind of probably have an idea. Just switch out the time period and the characters. Now, I can definitely say this now is going on the list of my favorite 80s films. I don't know whether it'd be in the top 10 or not. It's at least in the top 30, if not top 50. I'd say 30, definitely. Now, before this, I'd seen bits and pieces of it. Like, I'd seen the infamous in the train station. It's just it was an edited version on AMC, so it didn't have the same power. In case you're wondering, I saw it on Amazon, so if you have Amazon Prime and you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. It is worth it. And, of course, it is the perfect 4th of July film. I mean, government agents cracking down on people who are doing stuff illegal. Now, if you can have your opinions on Prohibition, I personally think it was a stupid idea, especially if you do the research of it. It was mainly people trying to legislate morality, mainly, some of those morality groups that do have some Christian connections. Not all of them probably were, but that was there. So it's, like I said, legislating morality and shoving religion in the government's face. And that's simplifying it, but if you want to find out more about it, look up the Ken Burns documentary on it. That is a great documentary. It also explains more about Capone's rise to power. They don't really talk a lot about his rise to power in the film, but he's in power already, which I think fits the time of the film. And it goes into his conviction a little bit, and you have to. And of course, the way the film ends with Capone going to jail and the reporter talking to Ness about, I hear they're going to repeal prohibition soon. What are you going to do? I think I'll get myself a drink. Perfect way to end the film. Because even though Ness is going to enforce the law of the land, wants the law of the land, the moment it changes, we'll have no hesitation taking a drink. Even though, if you actually look into it, I don't know if Ness partook in this, but a lot of the people who were enforcing the law, mainly politicians, on the side, they were still buying illegal liquor. Go figure. As you can kind of tell from how I'm talking this film to no end, it does come with my recommendation. Like I said, Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's on Netflix, I didn't check, but it's probably on other streaming sites too. It's just, that's the one I saw through. If you're a fan of Costner, if you're a fan of De Palma's direction, if you're a fan of Sean Connery, definitely watch it, because if you don't, you're gonna wish you had a knife for the gunfight.